En nombre de Equilibrium Global, les doy la bienvenida a este nuevo video de la sección Análisis y Opinión. En esta oportunidad, hemos consultado a Nueva Delhi sobre la base de la cooperación de nuestra organización con el think tank de Kudneti. Hemos generado este contenido de especial interés para nuestra audiencia. Se trata de la situación geopolítica en Asia desde la mirada de India. Para ello, hemos consultado con dos calificados expertos, Kavita Seuda y Nishant Agarwal. Antes de comenzar, les recordamos que se suscriban a nuestro canal de YouTube, que es un gesto de adhesión que valoramos mucho desde nuestra organización. Kavita Seuda y Nishant Agarwal son miembros del programa insignia de The Kudneti, el Foro Internacional sobre el Nuevo Orden Mundial. Kavita Seuda ha trabajado anteriormente en los estudios sobre el conflicto entre China e India, las relaciones entre India y Rusia y las conversaciones de paz de los talibanes. Nishant Agarwal ha estudiado respecto de las relaciones entre India e Irán, el interés de India en el conflicto entre Armenia y Azerbaiyán y la política de India para la región de Asia Central. Let's begin with an analysis about the foreign policy of India and its relation with power actors, China, Russia, US, and the case of the Taliban peace talks in Afghanistan. Kavita, from your point of view, what are the preponderant considerations to take into account to understand these relations of India with the power actors?
Uh, Thanks for the invitation. I think all these topics, with reference to India's relations with China, Russia, and Afghanistan as well, the things are changing a lot in these days. So it makes a lot of sense to discuss about these relations with India. I'll first talk about China. So I'll start with the recent incident that happened. The recent context is about the Galwan Valley, which is part of the Indian state of, which is part of the Ladakh area, which is part of India's territory. There is this valley called Galwan Valley, where there was this recent incident where 20 Indian soldiers were martyred on 15th of June night. And so since then, the things have been hyped up, and there's an armed stalemate between India and China in eastern Ladakh, the Exai and the border areas. So on the both sides, over 1,000 soldiers have been mobilized. So obviously, there is a lot of tension. And even the foreign minister, Mr. Jaishankar, foreign minister of India, Mr. Jaishankar has mentioned June 19, soon after June 15, that this incident is, such of is of huge importance between the relations between the two countries. Uh, in there is a sense of there's a sense of huge this affection in the Indian people about this incident, and this is being seen in many social media trends where for the first time it was clear out in the social media where Indian people decided to celebrate a national Taiwanese National Day. So this shows that these incidents are mobilizing public opinion as well in India. This can be seen, these incidents add to a long chain of Mr. Xi Jinping's policy, where China is being seen as more aggressive on its behavior in the South China Sea, Indian border as well, and the debt trap policy of in BRI. So this adds to the recent controversy. In When we go to the past, the historic relations between the two countries, the border has been more or less peaceful, but India and China have been to war once in 1962, which India lost, and it has been of a huge importance in public memory since then, because the only war India has ever lost is against China. So these are important incidents that shape the public opinion as well as the state policies against China with respect to China. And also there was this 2017 incident in Doklam Valley, which is part of Bhutan, but since India helps Bhutan with its India's army. So that was also an incident where the relations between the two countries dipped to its lowest. But the recent incident, since the recent incident in Galwan, the relations have dipped very low, and this can be seen in addition to uh, where India is not directly holding China responsible for the mismanagement of COVID-19, but this is there in the backdrop of public opinion, but this is not the state opinion of India till now. And this can also be seen with the growing importance of Quad, that is the quadrilateral grouping, which has US, Japan, Australia, and India as its part, and now it is taking more and more turn as an anti-Chinese grouping. So I think these are the recent updates about India-China relations. Coming on to India-Russia relations. So basically, if we go by history, then they have both maintained. Initially, they were not at good terms right after independence, but they came up close after there was Sino-Soviet conflict, and US was going closer to Pakistan. So it gave a lot of good reasons for Russia and India to come closer, though India was officially part of the non-aligned movement, so not being part of the any of the blocks of the Cold War era. And when Russia and Indian relationship was growing closer, Russia helped India a lot with respect to establishment of basic industries, scientific and technological development. The important and landmark treaty with respect to two countries was the 1971 Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which made a de facto alliance between the two countries. We can see the alignment between the two countries in the sense that Russia is also vocal for multipolar world order, and it is a significant source of advanced defense technology and hardware technology for India. And there have been many recent agreements as well, despite India getting closer to US when it comes to defense ties as well. So also there is a growing relationship between China and Russia. This is making India a bit uncomfortable. Also, the Ukraine crisis gave, from Russian point of view, it gave element of discomfort to India. And also, when it comes to moments of synergy, Russia is the only country which is allowed to do civil nuclear power plant is helping India in civil nuclear power plants. And there is also cooperation in international north-south transport corridor, which was aimed to facilitate connectivity between the countries and many countries on the way. But there is disappointment that it is going very slow and has been delayed a lot. Also, though the two countries are having such a long relationship, the trade component is still very low, as Russia comprises only 1% of India's total trade. So also there is another weakness, that despite such a long relationship, the people to people communication, people to people contact has been very low, and which has kind of stopped the relationship from growing further. And there are a few other issues in this relationship. For example, the growing closeness between Russia and Pakistan, the arms sale that Russia is facilitating Pakistan with, and also US getting closer with India. That is, and the growing closeness between Russia and China. As I said, these are the issues which are which are being problematic in the further growth of the relationship. And I think this is the recent development with respect to Russia. And also both China, Russia are part of BRICS grouping, and along with India, and so they have a lot to gain from cooperation. Now, with respect to Afghanistan, the traditional Indians, the Indian stand has been that it it supports only that development which is done with the involvement and authority of the elected Afghanistan government. So India till now and has rejected any sort of Taliban led government if it is with respect to just any dictatorial means or something and not through democratic means. So India is yet to involve with Taliban in the peace process. It fully supports the democratically elected government in Afghanistan, and peace in Afghanistan. It has not been putting its soldier and military in Afghanistan to fight against Taliban, but it has helped Afghanistan a lot through soft power. For example, it has helped establish its parliament. It has built dams. It has helped in development of educational institutions and hospitals. So this is the means that India has chosen for helping Afghanistan and furthering its democracy.
Nishant, could you add some comment about these topics that Kavita has already developed?
I feel that the Indian foreign policy faces a conundrum that it has always faced, since the days of non-alignment movement. We want to practice this strategic ambiguity. I do not feel that it has done us any good. It can't do us any good, at least at this point. We know, there's a resurgence in China, and US is withdrawing from the global world order, and it's a reality that we need to grow a bit closer to the US and keep our ties with Russia at bay. We must understand that there are no friends in the international order, and we must not get like angered by the Russian arms exports to Pakistan, because India has always been the primary more than 50% of the Russian arm exports have been to India. India has been the only nation. India and China have been the only two nations that have made their industry profitable post the Soviet collapse. So India needs to move on from that. Also, India needs to take tough stands. Like in the recent Quad meeting, Jaishankar didn't even mention China once. So India has actually failed to channelize the anger against Chinese globally. India has failed, and we all know that the Indian population is pretty anti-Chinese sentiment at the moment, and the weight that India has, the diplomatic weight that India has globally, it could have been channelized in a much better way. Yes, we have used the Taiwanese National Day as a great opportunity recently, a great PR opportunity. There is we can have greater cooperation with them. We already have greater cooperation with them. It's just that we don't recognize them as a nation state, of course, due to the One China principle. Yes, that's it.
Another issue of our interest is the competition in Eurasia and the diverse aspects that are involved in geopolitics of Asia. So, Nishant, could you explain us what is India's interest in Armenia and Azerbaijan clash? How is the relation with Iran, and also Indian policy for Central Asia?
Sure. So, with respect to Armenia and Azerbaijan, India is again facing the same conundrum. Recently, India sold about 4 radars to Armenia, and Armenia has always been pretty pro-India, since a decade or so. We have mutual allies in Russia too. Pakistan has actually went on to support Azerbaijan, and India had still not come out with a statement like in support, in respective of irrespective of greater people-to-people contact between Armenians and Indians, vis-a-vis Azerbaijanis and Indians. There's no statement as of yet. So that's a bit ironic. Like, they haven't condemned it, they haven't supported any of them, they haven't, like, they usually say that we wish for the both parties to have negotiations and so on, but there's nothing. So that's the situation. India's interest, so to be honest, India has greater economic interest with Azerbaijan. We have more trade with them. Recently there was when the conflict is going on, there were a couple of IL-76 planes from Azerbaijan Silkway Airlines that were coming into Delhi. Just a day before, they were in Israel picking up weapons for the Azerbaijani army. So we do not have what I should say, a strict foreign policy. Like, we haven't defined our objectives in the same in this context. And regarding Central Asia, we all know about the great game that happened in the 18th and 19th century. Well, after the Soviet collapse, the new great game is going on. Russia, so Central Asia has always been Russia's background. It's the part of the Russian near abroad. So Russia always wants to have greater influence in that region. Now, China economically has, like, I guess it's already the biggest trading partner with the Central Asian republics. It has more than 100 billion USD in trade with them. India, on the other hand, has failed to match, like, obviously we can't match the economy, them monetarily or in economic ways. India has failed on that front. So there are objectives like the TAPI, the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan and India pipeline. Work on it has been going on since 2010, but it's stuck at the moment. Like, Afghanistan is a major issue in this because of the instability at the moment. Economically, India's greatest partner in the region is Kazakhstan, and we import about 5 to 7,500 tons of uranium from them. Kazakhstan being one of the only uranium exporting countries to India. Could you just repeat what you want me to say? Like, repeat your question. What do you want me to? So I was mentioning that India's key partner in the Central Asian region remains Kazakhstan, as most of India's trade, about 1.2 billion, remains with Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan remains India's one of the only global partners which export uranium to India as of now. India has agreements with Australia and the US too, but we haven't received uranium from them as of now. Interestingly, I come from Jamia Millia Islamia. That's my alma mater. It has the nation's only Uzbek center within the university. So I have had chat with a lot of Central Asian students in my university. So they have told me that India has the ability, like, Indians generally are trusted more than any other partner in Central Asia, right? So Central Asian people do not want the Chinese to invest. Like, they would, if given an option, they would definitely prefer Indians there. But India is not even there to give them an option. Like, India has failed on its commitments lately, and the number of students are also, like, there's a greater need of people-to-people exchanges. We cannot match the Chinese in economic sense. So public diplomacy remains the only front where we can engage with them. So recently, Yoga Day has been a day for that. There have been Indian embassies have been doing great work on that front in popularizing yoga and Ayurveda in these nations. Plus, there have been visits from these nations, but the overall trade remains less. Trade needs to be the main hindrance remains the non-existence of land boundary between Central Asia and India. Like, the Wakhan corridor separates the two, right? and Pakistan deliberately denies us the opportunity. So we have been trying to engage with the Iranians on the same. So we wanted to develop the Chabahar port, but the JCPOA and the American sanctions have delayed the same too. Indian investments have suffered there, and since a lot of the equipment actually had to come from China, there have been like little progress on the same. So there have been exports to uh, Afghanistan. We have exported grain to them, but the main objective that was for the same was to reach Central Asia and European markets. We haven't reached that, right? So, India's engagement with Iran remains on the like depends upon the US sanctions. So whenever we are about to do something great, there are these sanctions. So currently there's an issue with a lot of Iranian funds that are stuck in the banking system, which can't be like in the Indian banking system too, which they can't even access their own money. That's because of the sanctions. Because these banks, be it Indian, be it foreign banks, they do not want to face the brunt of it. So a lot of it, and this vacuum has been used by China pretty well. So they recently signed about $400 billion agreement with them, with the Iranians. So since we are backtracking on Chabahar, the Chinese have been trying to integrate it with the CPEC, using the port of Bandar Abbas and Chabahar and integrating them. So Indian investments are being currently used by the Chinese, the incomplete process. So what I feel is like there is there's a need of an increased commitment to the projects India already has. Plus, there needs to be greater people-to-people relationship, which already exists. Like in the case of China, it doesn't exist. uh, Indian movies, etc., like Bollywood is extremely popular. Like that was one of the only things which actually crossed the Iron Curtain and actually went to the Soviet Union, which still people know in the region. So we can capitalize on that. Uh, Except that, I feel we need to integrate them in our supply chains. Like India has achieved a certain level of development. Like we can transfer technology to them of capital as well as durable goods and integrate them in our supply chains. Plus, there's a need of a free trade agreement. Like there were talks with Uzbekistan recently, but there's no like they haven't materialized as of now. But there is a need of a free trade agreement. Plus, yeah, India has been recently like building upon its defense potential, like its defense export and industry. So we need to mobilize our defense attaches. Like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan have defense attaches in the embassies. Like all the Indian embassies do not have them. So there's a huge potential for defense exports between the two, and we need to capitalize on that. Yeah, that's it.
Well, so India needs to work on that front. And as Nishant rightly pointed out, Central Asia is very important for India when it comes to its energy security, which is one of the most important things for any country. So India needs to work on Tapi pipeline and other energy security projects.
Thank you so much, both of you. En América Latina, muchos de los contenidos que nos llegan con respecto a Asia provienen de Estados Unidos, de Europa, y en esta oportunidad nosotros trajimos el prisma desde India. Por eso le agradecemos la colaboración a The Kutneti. Debajo, en la descripción del video, encontrarán datos y links de interés y complementarios. No se olviden de suscribirse a nuestro canal de YouTube, que es un gesto de adhesión que valoramos muchísimo desde nuestra organización. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos.